Hello everyone. Welcome to this video on IPMAT Indore 2023 analysis. My name is Durga Shankar. I am the Chief Mentor with IMS UG Management, and I will be the speaker for this session in which I will take you through the detailed analysis of how IPMAT Indore 2023 paper was. To begin with, let us understand the paper pattern. Now, there were three sections. It has been the case traditionally with IPMAT Indore that there are two sections for quantitative ability and one section for verbal ability and reading comprehension. Now, the two sections of quantitative ability has a difference. As you can see, the first section will be a quantitative ability section, short answer, meaning in this section of 15 questions, each question will only have a blank in which the student has to calculate the answer and type in. There are no answer choices provided like how it is in a multiple choice question. So in the short answer section, the student has to find the answer on his own and type in that number in the blank given for that respective question. Also, one important aspect is the short answer section does not carry a negative marking, meaning whether you answer it wrong, also you will not attract a penalty. Now, this particular section over the last 2 years from 2022 and 23, the paper pattern has remained the same, where there were 15 questions from the short answer section and each question carries 4 marks. So the total score of the section stands at 60 marks, out of which the announced cutoff stands at around 12 marks. Meaning any student who's able to answer around 5+ questions confidently, and even if he's able to get 3 to 4 of them right, would have cleared the cutoff in this particular section easily. Now, the sectional cutoff is a very important factor in IPMAT Indore because there is no overall cutoff for a student to be shortlisted for interview. The student to be shortlisted for interview should clear the cutoff of each of the 3 sections in the paper. So only once a student clears the cutoff of quantitative ability short answer, quantitative ability multiple choice questions, and verbal ability section respectively will be shortlisted for interview. Now, when you look at the quantitative ability section, multiple choice questions, the number of questions were around 30 and they do carry negative marking. So each correct answer gives 4 marks and each incorrect answer attracts a penalty of 1, which makes the total score of the section or the maximum score in the section is 120 marks and the announced cutoff stands at around 39, meaning a student who's able to answer around 15 questions with around 80% accuracy would have been able to cross the cutoff quite comfortably. Now, once you look at these two sections, you will understand one common point is that these two sections of quantitative ability short answer and multiple choice questions are not very high scoring. In the short answer section, out of 15 questions, if I'm able to answer around 5 to 6 questions confidently, it would help me clear the cutoff, which is hardly 1/3. And in the multiple choice question section, out of 30 questions, if I'm able to answer 15 to 17 questions with confidence, I'll be able to clear the cutoff, which sorts of makes us understand that the question selection is a very, very critical factor in scoring in any of these two sections. Moving on to the third section, the verbal ability and reading comprehension. In terms of scoring, it stands completely different with respect to the quantitative ability sections. This section has 45 questions, multiple choice question format. Each question carries 4 marks and a penalty of 1 mark for wrong answers, which means the section has a maximum score possible of 180, out of which the cutoff stands at 125, which is almost 2/3 of the score of the section. So out of 45 questions, a student who's able to answer around 38, 39 questions with good accuracy of around 80% should definitely be able to clear the cutoff. Now let us go in depth into each of these sections and understand how each of these sections are with respect to the topics and also the coverage of how many questions from each of the topics. Now to begin with, the quantitative ability short answer section. 15 questions in this section can be categorized topic-wise and area-wise, as you can see on the screen. Some important points to note: the cutoff, as mentioned earlier, is around 12 marks, which tends to be the lowest cutoff till date, making it the toughest short answer section in IPMAT Indore over the last few years. Also, if you look at all these 15 questions in detail, you'll be able to notice that there are, on an average, 3 to 4 questions which are easy, doable, straightforward. There are 7 questions which are commonly seen type of questions, doable questions. Only fact is that these are slightly time consuming. And of course, there are certain speed breakers, or rather the difficult questions or tricky questions that will make you invest time onto them, but may not result in finding an answer so easily. So there are around 5 to 6 such questions. Thereby, it is clearly visible that we have enough and more scope to be able to answer the required number of questions with which we can clear the cutoff in the designated time of the particular section. Also, if you observe the area-wise categorization of questions in this section, you will see that majority of the questions have come from arithmetic and modern math, whereas the questions from areas like numbers, algebra, and geometry were comparatively on a lower side. One more interesting factor here is that almost half the number of questions in the section were based on single concept. Now, one very common feature that we see in all these entrance exams is that good number of questions involve multiple concepts, thereby making it slightly difficult for the student to understand the approach and answer. However, interestingly, in the quantitative ability short answer section, there were almost 7 questions which are based on individual concept. Meaning, if you are very thorough and familiar with that particular concept, you definitely would have been able to answer most of those questions. Of course, some of those questions might have taken a little bit time. But still, in 40 minutes, if you are able to identify the right questions, clearing the cutoff doesn't seem to be a challenging thing. Now, moving on to the quantitative ability multiple choice question section. Now, 30 questions in this section are categorized into different topics and areas, as you can see. Now, though on the paper pattern on the outset, you see only quantitative ability and verbal ability as the sections of the exam, the area of data interpretation and logical reasoning also has some importance when it comes to IPMAT Indore. It's been a constant practice that every year there is a set of 4 or 5 questions of either data interpretation or logical reasoning in the section of QA MCQ, meaning almost 1/6 of the multiple choice question paper constitutes either data interpretation or logical reasoning, which, if you practice a bit, can definitely play very well in your favor, because 5 questions, if you get them right, 5 into 4, 20 marks, you're already halfway to the cutoff. Now, the cutoff for the MCQ section this year, as mentioned earlier, is around 39 marks. And to achieve this particular score. And also, once you look at the number of questions which are easy, moderate, and difficult, we are confident that a student who plays smart and follows the right strategy of selecting questions should definitely be able to answer around 15 to 17 questions with those in those 40 minutes and be able to answer almost 80% of them correct, thereby clearing the cutoff without much of a hassle. Contrast to the quantitative ability short answer section, the number of questions from the arithmetic section have been quite less, whereas the maximum number of questions were seen from modern math. Overall, meaning that in 2023 paper, quantitative ability short answer and multiple choice question sections put together, modern math has had lot of questions coming from it, which definitely should be an area of focus. And as mentioned a while ago, the logical reasoning set of 5 questions can definitely be a potential game changer for someone who is falling short of the cutoff. All that it is required is to familiarize yourself with certain fundamental concepts of DI and LR and do certain amount of practice to expose yourself to a variety of questions that will help you answer any different type of set you come across in the exam. Now at IMS, the selection strategy that we teach students right from the beginning, which helped a lot of them score well in the exam and be able to clear the cutoff, is the so-called ABC approach, where every question needs to be categorized into one of the 3 buckets as ABC, as we fondly call them. And to categorize a question, a student should be able to do it in like around a minute or even less, depending on the size of the question. And if the question is something that is very direct in nature and it's something familiar, and you are able to visualize the path to answer the question in your mind, then you categorize it as A, which stands for Abhi Karo, meaning you right away attempt that question and complete it in the next minute. The second type of a question is something which is remotely familiar. Now the concept seems to be well known, but the format of the question is different from the traditional formats we have seen, or we are confident of solving the answer, but owing to the process involved, it seems to take considerable amount of time. Then such questions are to be categorized as B, which is Baad mein. So ideally, we expect the students to mark these questions for review and come back once you exhaust all type A questions. And the type C are the ones that you need to steer clear of. If a question is from a topic that you are extremely uncomfortable with, and the format of the question is also such that you find it very difficult to comprehend or even visualize as to where you begin with, you are unable to identify the starting point, or the question seems to be tricky. So these are questions that should be categorized as type C, which stands for chhod do, meaning these are the questions that you should skip. Remember, in exams like IPMAT Indore, as much important it is to know which questions to attempt, it's equally important to know what are those questions that should be skipped. At IMS, with the help of certain tools, we were able to train our students effectively every year and help them attain the so-called cutoffs that have made them sit for the interviews and convert the call into an admission. Some of the salient features that we offer right from the beginning of the course, we do have special sessions focusing on IPMAT Indore level of questions, topic-wise. So it's unlike most of the other cases where the entire preparation gets completed and then the IPMAT Indore preparation begins. At IMS, we start preparing students for IPMAT Indore level right from the beginning, topic-wise. And in order to keep evaluating how good or bad you are able to do in each of the topics, we do have topic-wise benchmarking tests of IPMAT Indore level. with video solutions that will help you understand where you are, each topic, and also the IPMAT Indore mocks with video solutions, which were appreciated a lot by many of the students who have cracked IPMAT Indore. Our mocks were more difficult in general than the actual IPMAT, which made it quite easy for our students to handle the surprises that they came across in the actual exam. Now moving on to the verbal section. Now the verbal ability and reading comprehension section has 45 questions, out of which you can see around 12 questions are from reading comprehension passages. Grammar and vocabulary has significant chunk of importance. Almost these two together constitute half the section, followed by verbal reasoning. Now, grammar and vocabulary stand as the areas which help students score more in general, whereas verbal reasoning and particularly questions on para-jumble have often been difficult for most of the students to crack. So the cutoff, as you can see, stands at around 125 marks. In contrast to the other two sections, the verbal section stands as a high scoring section, and the required number of attempts in general for a student to be able to clear the cutoff comfortably stands at around 38 to 40 attempts out of a total of 45. And as you can see, good chunk of questions were very simple and direct, thereby giving the student a bandwidth to be able to answer those questions. And maximum number of questions usually come from grammar and verbal reasoning. And verbal reasoning plays, the game-changing factor of whether a student clears the cutoff or not. Now, this is how the entire paper of IPMAT Indore 2023 has been. And we have the video solutions of the actual IPMAT Indore paper available on our website. You can click the card on the screen and be able to watch the entire video solutions of IPMAT Indore 2003 actual paper. All the best and see you guys in my next video.